And literally, I dropped to my knees in front of her, 60-year-old guy, dropped my knees in front of her, and I said, I am Zenon Duda. I want to learn how to knit from you, and I will do anything for you. I will start sweeping your floors right now.
Welcome back to the Two Promises podcast. Let's dive right into another exciting adventure with BD and crew as he pursues his new passion of one day finding the most epic bourbon. The Two Promises team send their special thanks to Hobie and the Huckleberries for their masterful theme music. So grab a glass, relax, and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
How do you distinguish between a mentor, kind of like you're describing, who is there trying to make you better, and a critic who's just there to tear you down or to even just project their own life circumstances outwards to you and your work? And how would you recommend someone going about finding that true mentor?
Well, number one of my other favorite movies is Ronin. It's a De Niro movie, and it's a shoot 'em up, blow things up, drive fast thing. But there's a line in there where De Niro says, when there's doubt, there is no doubt. As soon as you start thinking it, it's true. Your gut is talking to you. So you suspect that someone's a psycho head case, just get away, right away. Don't waste your time. If you're thinking that, you're just clumping along in life, right? You're not have your radar on safe, not safe, psycho, safe person. You're kind of doing it, but generally you're just kind of hop along Cassidy. You're walking down the street, got, a bird, a squirrel, Now you run into someone and right away you go, danger, danger, your anxiety level goes up, your whatever, your hair stands on your neck. Anyone who's been robbed will tell you that. When someone comes up to you and go, hey, buddy, you know what time it is? Or got a match? I grew up in Chicago. When people do that to me, right away, I'm on alert. And if they ask me if I have a watch, I go, I'm sorry, I don't have one. Bye. I just keep on walking. And if they ask for a light, I'm sorry, I don't smoke. Bye. Keep walking. Because a perp is looking for an opening to get in, to get your safety defenses down so they can move in and do whatever they want to do. And it sounds callous or whatever, but I, in my young life, have been robbed and thought I was going to be murdered, thought I narrowly escaped with my life. So I'm speaking from experience. And now I could be like the guy that's all worried about stuff, but I'm not. If I meet someone where they're disingenuous, I kind of know it and I'm going to avoid them. If I see someone who knows what they're doing and they're willing to teach, you know it. So be open, be willing to learn, be willing to experience people. And the other thing is ask around. If you ask anyone, who's a great blacksmith, it's going to be Rick Smith, it's going to be Medvedev, and, some other dudes that I don't know, but they're all right around. There is the girl, she's in Cobb, used to be in Cobden or Maconda. She had a company called the Velvet Hammer or whatever. I heard about her 20, 30 years ago. And the reason I heard about it is I would look at her metalwork and her tapers would be like these really long, skinny vines, I'd look at that and I'm like, top of her craft. This is a person that I would want to learn how to do tapers from. And I'll go look. I had a patient who was a knitter. She was a counselor. And she liked to knit, to relax. So I saw the movie The Matrix, and I love those sweaters in them, And I'm like, she goes, what do you want to knit? And I go, a sweater. And she goes, what kind? I go, from The Matrix, the one that Neo wore. And she said, well, you're going to find a pattern, So I got online and blah, 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 some knitting, website. And it said, oh, the fashion designer for the movie The Matrix is Nina Ganchi, and she lives in St. Louis, and she's got a shop on the hill, and on Marconi Street. And 2 days later, I was going to St. Louis to Marconi Street to the hill to walk into Nina Ganchi's shop. And I knew her from her work because I watched The Matrix so much, it was like, I want this, I came into the store, no one there. She was upstairs. She had like a mezzanine gallery thing. She comes down the stairs and she's this beautiful Sicilian woman from the hill, St. Louis native. And she had this smile and real welcoming personality. And literally, I dropped to my knees in front of her, 60-year-old guy, dropped my knees in front of her. And I said, I am Zenon Duda. I want to learn how to knit from you, and I will do anything for you. I will start sweeping your floors right now. And that's how our friendship began. We're still friends and good ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's how it happens.
So cool. So
Yeah.
cool. So you're just like, hey, you figured out what you're looking for, what you needed. You did the research, you talked to people, you got referrals, and you found the best one in town. And then you just committed to help them out, to do whatever task that they needed done in exchange for that knowledge.
Yeah. And that was totally serendipitous. And, that's me. Someone else may not do that, but I would advise that you do it. What do you got to lose? And Nina is one of my best friends. She's like a sister to me. And this is 15 years later.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So
also burner.
Oh, nice. Nice. So you clearly didn't meet through that from what it sounds like in the story. So you guys found that out later as you were kind of getting to know each other better. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So at one point you've mentioned kind of the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
And you've gone on your journey, and it's extremely fascinating. That's why I was so excited to be able to have you on this show, that there's in that framework, there's the refusal of the call. So you've been very passionate in your pursuit of excellence, both in your professional healthcare career, your doctor career, and then also in your art world. So the refusal of the call, that moment where the hero tries to turn back, it's like, okay, this isn't for me. Maybe the mountain's too big, maybe whatever it is. What was your moment of refusal? When did you almost quit art entirely? And what was it that forced you to cross that threshold?
Good question. I would tell you that the refusal of the call is constant. Like, like life is going
Very
on.
wisely spoken.
Like you got to push at it all the time. You got debt. You got car payments. You can't have a vacation. You just had your vacation this week. You've got tax stuff you got to pay. You got people who tell you can't go. You've got a broken timing chain on your car. You've got a flat. You're constantly dealing with obstacles to do whatever it is you want to do. Constant, So, and there's times when this one's more heavy. Probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. Just a little bit after I turned 60, a couple years after I turned 60. I'm 70 now. And I had made some stuff that I thought was really good. That was phenomenal. And after I did it, I thought, take me. I'm ready right now to go. Like I can die right now. And I'm a guy with 2 daughters and grandchildren. And I was ready to go. I felt like this artwork had fulfilled my purpose on this planet, and I could die right now and I would be okay. Like I'm good. And then, you make stuff afterwards and it's like not quite as good as your high point. And then there's a point that I reached, some years later after doing that, making that thing, the high wasn't as good as that first time. And I was like, what? Why? I got stuff piled up in my studio. I didn't sell it. I was making stuff, but all I'm doing is just buying equipment and not really making a lot of cool art that someone would want, you know? And what am I doing here? And I went to Chicago to pick up a vehicle. I stayed at a hotel and I had to go to Union Station, get a train to go get the vehicle at some place in Lisle, Illinois, or something outside of Chicago. Anyway, I'm downtown and I grew up there in Chicago, pretty close to the inner city. And I'm walking down Michigan Avenue and I started looking up at the buildings, you know, and architecture is art. They should call it architecture instead of architecture. But I was looking up at the buildings, you know, and Chicago's got nice architecture. And I was looking at the bricks, the treatment, the embellishments on the building, the roofs, you know, the glass, the plantings. And I was just taking it all in. And I realized that I kind of love the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged from Ayn Rand. So I had this natural affinity towards architecture, but I'm looking up and, you know, my dad was a steel worker. My brother was a philosophy major, but it was summers he put marble up on skyscrapers in Chicago, Standard Oil Building, some other places. And, you know, he was a construction worker. So he told me the construction worker stories, you know, the guy that fell down through the scaffolding and everybody was off of work that day. And, you know, the drinking that went on and, you know, how rough and tumble these construction workers can be and stuff. And I'm looking up at the buildings and all of a sudden my mind expanded and I could see everything. I saw the bricks, the sidewalk, the cement, the cars, the buses. Behind the bricks, I saw the guys that laid bricks in such a way that when you look down the face of a wall on a building, you don't see any shadow on it. It's just like straight. It's like freaking perfect, right? Like a bricklayer knows when someone doesn't know what they're doing because when they look at a building, you know, you don't just get like one light, you get like weird lights because some bricks are sticking out too much. None of that, right? These guys built that stuff. They were architects, they were engineers, they were accountants. You know, this was all Fountainhead shit. They got drunk, they had weddings, they had babies, they got divorced, but yet they came to work, right? Hungover, crying, depressed, happy, whatever. And they did the frickin' work. They built these places. They're long gone. We don't know who they are. Their name's not on the bricks. But we have this thing that you get to walk into and be blessed with the beauty that they created. They thought they weren't artists. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? They're artists. They made this thing that you look at and you go, it's beautiful. You know, they did it. Some artist, designer, architect sat there with a piece of paper and said, this is how it should look. It should be 25,000, whatever, you know, and this many cubic yards of cement is needed. Some guy did all that stuff, but these guys built it. It's their hands, their cuts, their scrapes, their blisters, their broken gloves, their broken thumbs, their broken noses from getting in fights, their wolf whistles at the chicks that walk by. All of that is in those buildings, and you're looking at it, you know? So I was reborn, you know, when I saw that we all matter, you know, we all mean something. And our work, whether your name's on, your initials are on that brick or not, someone gets a little part of you in the web of life that you leave behind that is you and your family and everything that's connected to it.
Fantastic. I love it. It's pretty incredible. So a little bit of experience that I have there is not the exact same thing, obviously, because we're talking ancient or behind. But my first time in Italy, I was able to go for our metal smithing crew and our SIU cohort, if you will, and going through the Duomo in Milan and seeing even not just that, even just the architecture on the streets and everything all through there. And then it's just super fascinating, like you said, talking about how these people they're no longer here. They're long gone, but yet their blood, sweat, and tears went into those things. And it is truly, truly fascinating just to think about those things and to consider them.
Oh yeah. There, same thing, like I'm a big like reincarnation is very real to me. Let's put it that way. So when I go in these places, there's some places where I know I've been there before. Like I'm back home. When I'm in Venice, it's like in Milan too, I'm like or Paris, it's like I know I've lived here before. And so I don't care if anyone believes that or not, or if that's real to them, but it's just as valid as any other spiritual construct that people have, and everybody's entitled to think whatever they think. But there's something nourishing and fulfilling about knowing that we probably do leave some mark behind. And
Mhm.
even if you aren't lucky enough to have children or grandchildren, and you have your friends, and you have something you've done, something you've said, something you've created that has woven itself somehow, somewhere into the web of someone else's brain, that it's there. And it's mind blowing to know that. And it's very kind of fulfilling to know that as well. Like I helped some friends that had lost some loved ones. And it was a process, like a loss of a person assist. And it goes like this: you stand there with them. You should be trained, to do this, but you stand there with the person who's experienced the loss, and you have them, the command goes like this: look around and find something that doesn't remind you of the person that you lost, right? And then you do it repetitively. It's hard to get someone to do that at first because they're not catching on with the program, so you have to be patient and persist. But anyway, the invariably the first thing that happens is someone will look down at something like the ground, and they can't answer that question. Everything they look at reminds them of the person that they lost. And it's a very powerful process because at the end of it, a shift occurs where someone sees that the floor is a floor, the chair is a chair, the car is a car, the watch is a watch, and it is what it is. And everything about that other person is in here. It's like woven into who you are, what you know, how you act, and you'll see stuff that reminds you, of that other person, but then it's kind of in a new unit of time, and it's more of a blessing than a curse. You don't feel you still have the loss because you will always have the loss, but you shift your handling of that loss in a way where instead of loss, it's an appreciation of that person still with you, and that you're completing you in some way, so the Jerry Maguire thing of "you complete me" is so true, so
That's very powerful. I'm really grateful that you shared that with us because that is a phenomenal tool and a phenomenal perspective. And I want to kind of just touch on something else that you said a little bit before that, talking about the reincarnation and things like that. So I had a period in my life that you described earlier where you're like, "Hey, I'm done. I could be off this planet. I've accomplished my goal. I've done everything that I've set out to do." And mine was just listening to talk may or may not have been, but it seems like it might have been from a little bit more of a tortured
right.
standpoint. I was just exhausted, ready to be done, did not want to be there. Not just "Oh, if you take me away now, I'm fulfilled." No, it was, "I want a way out. I'm done with this place. I did what I came to do." And in that
I've been
process
there
of
too.
and it's a very awful place, and a big part of really the big reason this podcast exists is to offer a line of hope to people who have been there, who have or are there, and to try to help pull them out of those struggles, out of that darkness, pull them out of the water, get them on safe, dry land. So I'm sorry to hear that you've been there. I'm glad that you are still here. I'm glad that whatever was occurring then, you found a way to rise above it. In my experience, and if you want to share that at some point, you're absolutely open to. In my experience with it, I touched on some of the things that you're speaking about. I guess in the worldview that I grew up in, reincarnation was a fantasy type thing or a mystical type thing and wasn't really the way I was raised to believe. But in this process of soul searching, my eyes were opened to some of these possibilities and to some of these other expressions. So while I maybe not knowing, it's hard for me to say that it was absolutely this. Hey, what if it was an imprinted memory in my DNA somewhere from an ancestor? Or what if it was my actual experience and I have my own kind of beliefs on what I perceived to happen were, but my eyes were opened to some other timelines that I was very well there. I was there. I was alive in this whole other lifetime and timeline. And what kind of started me down that rabbit hole whenever I was in this meditation, whatever you want to call it, this process of soul searching, was I'd had a reoccurring dream whenever I was a kid.
Yeah.
And in that reoccurring dream, the setting would change, the architecture would change, the buildings would change slightly, but the storyline was always the same. We were like prisoners of war. We were in this camp. We were working, but we were also trying to break free. We were trying to like dig a tunnel. We had an escape route. We had a plan like, hey, if this occurs, this is what everybody needs to do. Go escape, evade, evacuate, all those things.
Right.
Well, every single time in that dream, those things are going on. Then all of a sudden, horn sounds and the guards start rushing in and they're just slaughtering everybody. Everybody's getting killed. You're running through the buildings. You're trying to get to that little tunnel that you guys have dug. And then it always ended the same way. I'd always get killed. And so that was kind of like the instigating question to, okay, so like, was that real? Was that? And then it was just like this challenge and reply almost of being shown other instances where I had died, for lack of a better word. It's really hard for me to describe it, but I got to experience a death experience. I'm like, we want to say, was it me? Was it an ancestor? I don't know, but it was undeniably real for me.
Yeah.
Just
Awesome.
wanted to share that. I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that or anything like that, but whenever you're saying that, I was just connecting with me, and I think I would have done ourselves a disservice if I didn't at least kind of open up and share a little bit there.
No, thank you. I value that tremendously. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. And this society that in the West that we live in years past, that didn't really favor that line of thinking much. If you're in the East, then it's more accepted. And then this understanding that we have is overridden by another program that has little or nothing to do with it. And so there's all kinds of counter arguments that people produce for that. But in reality, whether it be genetic or real or whatever, it kind of doesn't matter. Like there's a blank slate thing, like nothing existed before and you're just on the floor running with this new thing, this new life or whatever. But at the same moment, there are a lot of anecdotal stories about children that remember dying before in a plane crash or whatever, and that they've recited, they've been handled by psychiatrists who have done the work, and the kid could name the names, and sometimes be even born back in the same family or something like that. And there's no way this child would have known the players, from the previous lifetime, from this lifetime. But they know them and they give them to them, and when they confirm it, it's there. And the other thing, yeah, as a child, even as a toddler, some kids, you could damn near throw a hand grenade near them. And it's like, oh, yeah, big deal. What else you got? And there's others, you just blow at them and they start wailing, and they get pretty emotional or whatever. So you have to wonder, for someone with a blank slate, where all of a sudden they get these desires and these fears, like just exactly where they come from. Because you become afraid of something because you had a bad experience, right? You're happy with something because there's good reason to be happy, or maybe you enjoy that and you're re-experiencing it or whatever, But the fear thing is what gets me, like, or why does a kid, like some kid who's 2 years old, is crazy about motorcycles, or they're just fixated on this one thing. And to me, the answer is because they did it before and, they know what they like, So, and the same from the fear angle as well. Personally, as a child, I had a full-on auditory and visual somatic memory get replayed when I was like 5 years old or something like that. And it was of being hung. And I was,
Wow. Being
yeah,
hung?
yeah, like hung, not like,
Wow.
look what I got going on in my
Right.
pants.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know,
Man.
I I mean, I could feel tightening around my neck, I could feel myself leaving my body, etc. And then later when I explored it, I was a revolutionary and I got hung for that. And so if you lived once, you had to have lived before, because the logic line is there. And ultimately, although it's curious, like when I was young, and they had Shirley MacLaine wrote a book called Out on a Limb, which is about her prior lifetimes and stuff. And there are other people who have done that, and it's still going on all the time. People, fortunately, because of communication and media being what it is, it's allowed to surface more and people will talk about it more. And so it's not
Mhm.
as suppressed or invalidated as much as it used to be. And it really was before. I don't know why people were so afraid of, I've lived before versus you only live once. But, that's on them. And the beauty of it can be that if you've lived before, you want to come back and you want to leave a place good enough to come back to.
Mhm.
If you only live once, it's like, bye, good luck. you know?
Yeah.
So that element to it as well. And the other
No.
thing that there's an extension of that is that who cares? If you could spend all your time in hypnotic retrogression or whatever, past life regression to find your previous lifetimes, but there is a moment where you have to, I think, you have to say, big deal. What am I going to do? Like, find every single life that I lived so I would understand myself? There's a point where if you have a body, then you don't have a body, and then you have a body again. And so you have these between body stuff. And that's the meat of the matter is what are you doing when you don't have a body? That's the soul, the spirit. And it's not like I have a soul. You are a soul. You don't possess a soul. You are it. And that's the take home lesson, on the thing. And what's the purpose of a soul? What's the purpose of a person? They think they want to have a family or they want to have kids or they want to ride or they want to have a BMW or they want to have a this. These are not really purposes. They're like things you do that you're killing time. The purpose is I don't even think it's an identity or a role. Like, I want to be a carpenter. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a professor. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be this. I want to be that. It's all bullshit. These are all just identities that you can, a deck of cards, pick through or shuffle them, stack them, toss them, do whatever you want. What matters is to create, which circles back to the artist. And even the Bible stuff about God. Man is created in God's image. What does God do? Create. Therefore, man creates. So we are creators and artists are creators. We're makers, and what are you going to create? Like you're going to create an effect. And what does that mean? You create effects on other people, on yourself. It's a game. Creation, destruction, survival, recreation, that's the game. That's the purpose. So when someone says, I don't know what I want to be, they're worried about an ego identity. What all they really need to be doing is to create good effects. So you don't have to be one thing either. You don't have to be just a teacher like a little kid. Oh, you're going to be a teacher. Oh, you're going to be a doctor. Oh, it's so good. We're so happy. We're going to have a doctor in the family. That person, that identity, it may be okay when you're 5 and you first say it, but when you're 25 and you see someone that's just been shot in the nuts with a sawed off, in a altercation, or they're vomiting their guts out all over you, it's a different game then. That doctor can also be a teacher, can be a lawyer, can be a musician. That musician can tend to their children and be a healer. The teacher can be an instructor, they can be a guide, they can be a spirit guide, they can be a technical assistant, they can be a person that helped someone else develop. We all play multiple roles throughout our entire lives. And this whole notion of one identity is bogus. We're everything.
Man, I really love that you just went through all that, because that was literally the next thing that I was gonna kind of to dive into. So
Yeah.
you've hit that on the head, because obviously I had my whole career in the Navy prior to this. Now I'm doing this podcast thing. I'm doing the art student thing. So how would you encourage or give yourself or others, for instance, how did you give yourself, or how would you like to give others permission to be complex? Because your story is so fascinating. You've done so many things. You've worn so many hats. You've helped people in a lot of different realms of life. So yeah, what paradigm shift would you want them to have to just be like, permission to be, or whatever?
Well, that's not dependent on me.
Thank you for joining us today on this curious roller coaster of life. If this is your stop, please exit peacefully. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're ready for another one, just push play. Just a final note before you go. Thank you, and thank you for feeling. The distillation and aging process is different for everyone. I'm not quite sure what you're ready for. Sip slowly and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth whiskey